half a century. So I was alive at the turn of the century when people were really afraid of Y2K. They thought the whole, computer system was going to shut down. People were really afraid. Like they thought it was the end of the world. And we just saw this with this rapture thing that just happened a week ago where people thought it was the end of the world, right? So people get afraid and they start thinking it's the end of the world. Snail mail came. So there was a time in my life we didn't have email. And then people were like, oh, snail mail, like that's the mail. I don't like this email stuff. That's never going to catch on. And look, we all have email, right? With, the internet came. Everybody was afraid of the web, the cloud. Like, you follow me on this. This is like people being afraid. And we talked about this at the beginning of the episode. But notice everything that I mentioned, except for Y2K, that is in existence today. And it has been evolving. So digital assets, as I like to call them, which include digital finance, which is a thing. It's the same thing as finance, but in the digital space. Cryptocurrencies, which I like to call digital assets because that's what they are. NFTs, all of these things, and things that are upcoming that have not really come out yet. Like digitized real estate on the blockchain and things of that nature that are coming that most people are unaware of. The point I'm trying to make right now is while you sit there and you are afraid and you are skeptical and you're thinking it's not going to last and it's a passing trend, quietly, secretly, almost behind the scenes, it's growing. And just because you don't know that it's growing and evolving because you're in your fear and denial phase, okay, doesn't mean it's not happening. So I love you and I want you to live your best life possible. So I'm breaking it down with my friend Camille here for you so that you can understand that this is happening, whether you get involved or not. Get on the train or you're going to get left behind. Okay. It's up to you. It's your choice. Okay. But what I'm telling you is if you think it's a trend, if you think it's going to go away, it's not. Which brings me to my next question. I've been hearing all this news about high-level investment firms, the Wall Street kind, and all the big stock market people, let's say, for example, a BlackRock, right? They are creating these things that are tools for their clients to be able to invest in this market. They call them ETFs. Why are they doing that? Why would these high-level investment firms suddenly be interested in Bitcoin and Ethereum?
So you have two levels of interest. You have the investment firms themselves, and we have their customers, which are actually buying shares in the ETFs. And the number one reason, surprisingly, I've discovered doing my own investigation, but it makes sense, is the first big buyers of the ETFs were the first Bitcoiners themselves that have a large quantity of Bitcoin in their pockets. And the problem with having a large quantity of Bitcoin for 10 years, and over these 10 years the price has increased dramatically, is it poses security issues, much like having a big pile of gold in your house. It takes less space, right? But if someone knows you have it, you become a target. And so the ETFs are a great way at first for these people that already had Bitcoin and understood it to essentially deposit the Bitcoin under the security of those firms, which have protocols and people in place and cannot be coerced. Right? So even if someone snatches you off the street and extorts your Bitcoin, if it's in an ETF, they won't be able to get access to it. So you cease to be a target. And these were the early adopters of it. People, individuals, and companies alike. Now what we're seeing as well, the reason we're still seeing a pretty decent inflow, more than decent, actually an amazing inflow of capital going into these ETFs, is because more and more established investors These are private fortune individuals, treasury companies, not treasury companies, sorry, companies that want to add Bitcoin to their balance sheets, but don't want to have to deal with the complexity of holding the asset itself, are throwing more and more capital towards Bitcoin. And they're doing what we all have to do if we haven't done it already, which is to get off zero. These people are allocating a lot of money to our standard, but to their standard, it's 1 to 2% of their available cash or their net worth, if we're talking about individuals. So they're not taking a huge risk, but they recognize the huge potential that it has, and they want to start being accustomed to it to make bigger bets in the future if they see that this potential materializes. So this is why the individuals are going into these financial products, ETFs, and now ETPs of all kinds. Then the BlackRocks of this world, they have understood as well that exactly what you said, it's not a trend, it's not a phase, it's not going away. It's actually a new asset class. And this is how they are selling it publicly, if you've seen them on some money talk shows. And this is how they sell it to their customers as well. It's decorrelated from many other assets in many ways. So if you already have some real estate, equity, publicly traded stock, anything else, you might, some art, whatever, you might want to diversify a little bit more, putting a portion of your holdings into these quality cryptos. And you realize that they are going the same way I recommended earlier, which is in pretty much historical order of the creation of those assets. So they're going Bitcoin, then ETF, and now they're starting to touch some other ones. But right now, from what I can see, the ETF applications are all touching the top 15 cryptos that exist out there, classified by per market cap. Right? Nobody is taking a gamble on unknown coin for fun, on some new network that was born yesterday.
Right, because they want to be safe. So I like to tell people that maybe getting involved with an ETF could be a good, safer, like if you are risk averse, meaning you're really afraid of the space, but you're curious and you want to get involved because you feel like you've got FOMO, right? But you're a little bit scared to like dive right in. This could be a good way for you to enter this space and feel a little bit more secure, a little bit more safe, because these big investment firms, they're not, they don't want to lose, they want to make money, right? So if you're looking at it that way, why would they get involved if they thought that it was a waste of time and money? They wouldn't. And that brings me to my next question. So regulations. Okay. My question is about different governments are now looking at this, right? They have been. The US has been a little bit dragging on looking at this and sort of fighting against it. But I think that we have seen, especially with the new administration, that at least in this space, the interest has accelerated and that the tide has turned to a more digital asset friendly environment. So with the Genius Act, that has made a lot of things a lot more possible, but regulation does exist to also protect the consumer. So, but regulation can be good and bad. So how does this affect the investor?
So regulation indeed is there, always sold to us as protecting the consumer. Then you have to go into the details of the actual measures taken. But it's a good thing that they want, when they put regulation on the services that will help you acquire the assets, I see it as a very good thing. These services should not promise the ability for you to redeem assets they don't actually have in reserve. The whole reason Bitcoin was created is because we lost trust into the banking system in 2008, since they abused the fractional reserve system. Right. On top of this was a lot of derivatives that brought about the crisis. But then when we decided it was time to settle and stop the music for a moment and count who has what, everything came to a stop, because even the dollars that you see in the ATM for your bank account were not actually there. So in crypto, the whole point is that there is one for one. You can't leverage a fractional reserve. The legislation that is put in place right now is about how they serve you as a customer to make sure that they don't do this with your money. The Genius Act that Kia mentioned specifically regulated stablecoins because stablecoins will be the blood that will irrigate this whole crypto space. For a sector to thrive, it needs to be as liquid as possible. And if I take the housing market that most people understand, it's extremely liquid. You don't actually know truly the price of your house until you've sold it. Right? There's a lot of factors that come into play. So there's the market ask, which is what everybody knows. Everybody can read a price tag, but then what it's sold for is usually 20, 30% away from, often it is 20,